welcome to From the Nightmares of Hike Denny, and this is Commission 15 of Feral Dolls. So for this project, as you could already read from the title, I'm going to make a classic Lolita / Princesscore inspired custom doll, and as a base I will be using this Fright Camera Action Cleo Denial from my stock. So without further ado, I began the usual preparation process by warming up her head with a hair dryer, and then I disconnected it from her neck. Then I cut out her hair. Then I removed all her hair plugs and erased her factory paint with pure acetone. Before I began the rerouting, I needed to dye her alpaca hair pink. As always, I'm using Olin. The number is 9/22 Blonde Violet. And if you are new to hair dyeing, you also need the oxy to mix with paint. I mixed 25 grams of dye with 20 grams of oxy. And then I mixed this substance together. Then I began applying the dye over the alpaca hair. I also messed up in here and it was totally my fault. I didn't take the clear instructions provided by my client, and because of that I dyed her hair hot pink, so I redid this entire process once again, and this time off camera. But anyways, after finishing up that mess, I painted her head sculpt and I began rerouting her hair. Also, the way I do the rerouting is I basically start at the bottom edge of her head sculpt, then once I reach to the top, I do the hair parting and I reroute the right and left both spaces. Then I protected her hair and began the repainting. My client asked me to paint some pinkish purplish eyes, and I myself didn't do any drastic facial expressions. I felt like more of a gentle, neutral expression would be nice, because most of the time the Cleo repaints that I've seen are very seductive looking, which I kind of get it, it matches with her face sculpt and personality, but I just felt like doing a gentle facial expression while using a seductive looking face mold, kind of creating a contrasting look. But anyhow, I did the initial layer of blushing and then I began drawing her eye shape. Then off camera I did her scleras by taking the pigment from a pencil with a wet brush, which, as I mentioned before, I no longer use this method. I just paint the scleras with acrylics now. And then I blushed to distinguish the placement of her eyebrows, and then I darkened her upper eyelids, and I also blushed her cheeks. Now see why I no longer use this method, it's because it chips so badly. Even if you paint scleras with acrylics, you are still risking to crack it, so that's why I only paint the right and left parts where the white of the scleras are visible, and I no longer paint scleras fully where the iris is supposed to be. I just leave that circle part blank so that I will paint it with pencils and not be worried about cracking the layer. Now, even though some of my repainting techniques are very outdated in here, I still tried my best to continue the repaint, even though off camera I was experiencing like terrible physical pain. Basically, I'm very tall, I'm like 6'4", so when I walk too much my legs get swollen because they're not able to take my weight for too long. So and I'm sorry, but I don't really have the privilege to take a rest and wait for the pain to go away, so I was working while enduring pain. And of course, when you're experiencing massive amount of physical pain, it is going to be reflected in your work as well. So what happened is that I ended up getting so frustrated that at some point I freaked out and ruined this face up. And I don't feel like talking about how this moment made me feel, because I think in every video I'm being overly dramatic for like no reason, so I just removed her face up and then I began repainting all over again. And I didn't really record this time because I didn't want to get worried and distracted by my camera. This is how it ended up looking. Obviously her eyes look a bit unsettling here, but just wait until I add the glossy varnish, they will come to life. But before that I wanted to add some Pearl-X powders to her face, since she's kind of supposed to be a magical princess or something. I added glossy varnish to her eyes off camera at the very end of this project. And as I finished her face up, I removed her hair protection. And then I took my time to detangle her hair, and I also crimped it as well. So I did all these noodles, then I began doing French braids. This wasn't very easy to record because not only I had to worry about the braids but also to stay on camera screen while working. So if it's not very detailed, I'm sorry. I will add links of tutorials that showcase the process more detailed. In the end I tied those braids together, then I added rhinestones of camera. Then I blushed her body and added some Pearl-X powders on top of it. I did a quick sketch to decide what I want to make cause there was no reference photo this time. Client was kind enough to give me creative freedom, and in order to give her a very royal look, instead of using pastel pink or hot pink, I chose dirty pink. I didn't want the colors to be completely black, but I didn't want pastels either. And instead of choosing purple, I chose this wine sort of burgundy color. But anyways, I began making the corset using Warbler thermoplastics that I warmed up on candle to get the shape of her body. Then I cut out the parts where her breasts were supposed to cover. Now, if you have been thinking, okay, how I do draping on Monster High dolls, the scale is so tiny that I can't do any nice, sleek looking folds with fabrics. Well, I think I kind of figured out the way. Basically, I attached some paper tape under the silk, then I was finally able to fold it to create the draping bra effect or texture. So I folded them, then I glued that over the Warbler bra. Then I glued those two pieces together and then I cut out the axes. Originally I wasn't planning it to be heart-shaped, but it looked so cute that I went with it. I cut out the corset in shape that I wanted to, then I removed it from this body. But before I glued the bra to the corset, I actually cut the corset into different panel pieces. And then I cut out some fabric to attach to them. I cut out the axes, then I burned the edges, and then I glued the fabric to these pieces. And here are all the pieces fabricated, or what's the right word here? And then I hand stitched all these pieces together and it took me absolutely forever. It wasn't easy to stitch, so sometimes I used pliers to pull the needle through. After all that work, this is how it ended up looking. Now I just needed to stitch the heart-shaped bra to the corset, so I pinned it in place and began stitching. Then I also stitched some lace to the panel edges and some of these golden threads to make the corset look zigzag laced from the sides. Then I covered those messy stitches by gluing some lace. I also did the holes on the back edges so that I can lace it once I finish the entire garment. Then I wanted to make some puffy sleeves. I did a small doodle for that, and this time I actually wanted to make the sleeves with the puff at the head. So I did the same steps just like in the previous video, but with the opposite side. So I cut out the sleeve pattern into straps, then I left a small distance in between them and I glued that on paper. Then I cut it out and traced that on fabric. I used 2 layers of silk this time and I temporarily stitched them together. Then I did the pleats at the top edge and this is how it looked. Then I cut out a strap of fabric and stitched that at the top edge of the puff to make the edge look more neat and sort of ironed. Then I added the middle part of the sleeve to the puff and I also stitched some lace over it as well as lace at the top edge of the strap. Then I made some ruffly cuffs for the sleeves, and actually this could be such a cute pleated miniskirt or a cute crop top. But anyways, I hand stitched the open edges together. I think I also pricked my finger here, which I don't even remember. And then I flipped them inside out. I finished the pleated ruffles and then I stitched them in place and added some lace, and this is how they ended up looking. Then I cut out the skirt panel and some straps to do pleats so that I will eventually stitch them at the bottom edge. Then I used some of that golden thread and rolled it on this cardboard, and I cut them out. Then I burned the edges to prevent fraying. I placed them on her skirt and glued them to create these X panels. Now the cutest part of this project, let's make some tiny silky bows for her dress. I cut out the strap, folded it and line stitched over it with my sewing machine. To flip it inside out, I placed this straw inside the strap, then I pushed the edge of the strap inside the straw until it reached to the end. This took a while and I've never done this before, and let me tell you, if only you saw the joyful expression on my face when this worked. Once I flipped it, I measured it, then I cut it into equal smaller straps. Then I freight checked each strap. I marked a point in between the strap, then I stitched from the middle and stitched both edges to the middle again. And this is how they looked. I hand stitched all these bows on the skirt. And I stitched some lace over the pleats. However, I was a bit hesitant about the color, it just seemed a bit off for me. I also spent an entire day hand stitching all these tiny bits over the lace. But then as I finished it, I took a closer look and I got depressed. I really disliked the color of the lace, to the point that I didn't know what to do. I wasn't even able to sleep at night because of it, which I know sounds crazy, so the next day I got up from my bed and decided to rip the entire thing, with all the beads that I spent days hand stitching. And I did the entire thing all over again, but this time with a matching wine-colored lace. And I was finally happy with it. I also stitched beads once again. Then I stitched some lace over the skirt with my sewing machine. And then I line stitched it to do the basting. Now I wanted to add another layer under the skirt out of tulle, however the tulle that I bought didn't quite match with the color, so I tried to dye it. It didn't work as always. I mean, it didn't work because back then I wasn't even bothered to dye fabric while doing that on a stove in boiling water, so I'm not sure what kind of result I was expecting. I also stitched another layer of lace under the pleats to make it extra detailed. Now I wasn't able to find tulle with a matching color that has no sequins on it, so I got this one to put under the skirt. Then I did the basting and attached the corset to the skirt. Once I finished attaching them together, I stitched the back of the dress. And this is how it looked. And then it was time to put the dress on her body. But before I do that, I actually taped this piece of fabric on her back because I'm going to lace her corset, and obviously I couldn't lace it on her naked spine. So I taped it, then I put the dress on. Then I began lacing her corset. By the way, sometimes I would forget and lace the wrong tie, so it just took me a while to finish this whole thing. I also put this cam hand under the corset so that I can tie it. Also, see here the tweezers, when I push it to hold hard, the picking parts get a gap in between them, so it was kind of annoying to work with this. In the end, I also made sure that everything is very tight laced by twisting the thread one after the other. It's so weird how I thought that this looked so cool, cause after this one I actually laced another corset, and look how much progress I made already. In here it's just I forgot to add eyelets on, which is kind of frustrating. But anyways, I tried to use that tulle fabric with sequins to make stockings for her. However, they looked a bit too bulky and busy, and overall it was just too much. So that fabric actually has some parts where there was no sequin stitched over it, so I used that and restitched the pair again. And it actually looked way better. I just wish there was more of it, cause the stockings were a bit too short for my liking. Then I made her shoes. I cut out the shape of the shoe out of paper, then I traced that on Worbla and cut it out again. Then I used some polymer clay to build the shape around the Worbla. I'm really sorry that I didn't show you the sculpting process more detailed, but my fingers got sticky and I didn't want to mess up with my camera. So this is how they looked. I baked them in the oven, and then I sanded them with nail buffers to make the surface smooth and even. I stitched some silk over those shoes. Then I covered that with lace, and I also tied them with golden thread, which you will see at the end. Now, I wanted to make a tiara for her, however it was really difficult to make a decision what shape I wanted it to be, so I did some sketches and just digging on Pinterest. I found a reference photo of a tiara, however it was a bit too fairycore inspired and messy looking, and the doll that I made was more put together and neat. So I came up with a different design and technique. I took some of that golden thread and wired, and I placed the wire inside that so that I can bend and twist it to create the shape of my tiara. Here you can compare the difference with the one that has wire in it and the other one that doesn't. It can't really hold any shapes. I stitched some parts of it to make them attached to one another, and I also made sure to keep the size equal for each side. And then I also added some rhinestones. And in the end I was really happy with how it turned out. Then I put everything together and the doll was finally done. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope that you loved the end result. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, to all that stuff that I always feel uncomfortable asking for. And in the end, as always, I would like to thank my amazing Patreons that make these videos possible. Huge thanks to Smoogish, Cordula Siegel, Awkward Burp, Purple Pixie, Flying Bacheloress, Angela Reed, SK, Anna Drazdova, Linda K, Stephanie Good, Robin Wenderbush, and Josephine Falk. And if you would like to also become a Patreon and support the channel, the link is under this video description. You will get to see the work in progress of my doll projects and get early access to my upcoming videos. as well as make it possible for me to recreate winged fairies in the Enchantix form. Okay, that's pretty much all that I had to say. Thank you so much for watching again, and now please enjoy the end result pictures, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.